Hey guys, go back to another episode of Past Meets Profit. Let's go right into it today. We're doing a lot of falls and rises lately. This is gonna be another rise. Life goes a lot better. This is gonna be the rise of Muscovy. Let's get right into it. First, as per usual, we'll be talking about the political rise. So, their political rise started in their strategic geography. Muscovy was located in a forest-rich inland region, less exposed to steppe invasions than southern Rus. This allowed for some relative stability, some population and settlement growth, and some great defensive depth against nomadic threats, as most nomadic threats came on the horseback, and I forests make those horses a lot less maneuverable. Furthermore, its central location within Russia placed it at the key of crossroads for northern trade and migration. Now, their second advantage was their relationship with the Mongol Golden Horde. During the Mongol rule, or as the Russians would say, the Tartar yoke, Muscovite princes skillfully positioned themselves as loyal tax collectors to the Khan. What this did was give it the protection of the Khan, which is greater than any Russian principality at the time, authority over neighboring Russian principalities, privileged titles, and of course the revenue from collecting the taxes. This kind of pragmatic cooperation allowed Muscovy to grow in wealth and in power while rivaling principalities Tver, Novgorod, and Ryazan stagnated or declined. Three was their dynastic stability and centralized autocracy. The Muscovite dynasty, I'm not even going to try to say the name, provided consistent leadership and Iraq's stability for the time. Now, what also provided this stability was the ideals of this dynasty, which was focused on strict centralization of authority, gradual erosion of the local boyar or noble ability, independence of the nobility, expansion through diplomacy and the purchasing of lands. So, what this led to by the 15th century, Moscow developed some recognizable autocratic political culture that was centered around the Grand Prince of Moscow. Fourth, and this diplomacy, the Muscovites were able to expand. First through Nizhny Novgorod, Rostov, and Yaroslav, Tver, and Novgorod. The fall of Novgorod was especially decisive because it gave Moscow both an immense territory, wealth, and access to northern trade routes through the Baltic Sea. To go through this, I believe Tver and Novgorod were conquered, while Rostov, Yaroslav, and Nizhny Novgorod were all acquired via peaceful diplomatic means. Now, last but not least was not last actually, but also not least was the legitimacy. After the fall of Constantinople, Muscovite rulers promoted the idea that they were the heir to the Byzantine Empire. Why? Because they became the de facto protector of the Eastern Orthodoxy, giving them the claim to be a successor state of the Romans. Furthermore, Ivan the Third's marriage to the marriage to the niece of the last Byzantine Empire strengthened this claim and enhanced Muscovy's prestige. Last but not least, Ivan the Third in 1480 was able to completely end Mongol rule to the great stain of the Ugra River, which asserted the full sovereignty of Muscovy. Now, this full sovereignty really marks Muscovy's transition from a principality to a major independent power. Let's talk about their rise in the political situation. Now let's talk about their rise economically. We really started to see this with the annexation of Novgorod and other northern territories. because by doing this, Muscovy gained access to Baltic and Arctic trade fur, plenty fur, which became its most valuable export, and through that Baltic trade with the Hanseatic League of North Germany. This transformed Muscovy into a commercial center of the Russian area. If you wanted those furs, if you wanted those Siberian or Arctic goods, it came from via Moscow. Now, through their expansion, they were able to agriculturally grow, as of course they had more land, more peasants, for both till the land and for taxation, and greater food surpluses, which of course these surpluses are able to support population growth, and if you can feed the army you can expand, which they did. Now, Muscovy, while having almost an innate hatred for the Mongols, they didn't adapt some of their successful administration methods, including census taking, which helped for the next thing of direct taxation and centralized tribute management. It's created basically, if you know how many people you are, you know how many people to tax, and you can tax them directly, not through boyars or other local officials. You get that revenue for yourself. And what this did was create a reliable revenue system to support the growing bureaucracy and growing nation and to support its armies. Very important for the time. Kind of tying back into the Muscovian dynasty's ideals of being a very centralized state, a service state almost goes into the fourth point, because this service state required boyars and other nobles to kind of a pseudo feudal system in which there's military service in exchange for land grants. So, what this did is it meant that if you want land, you needed to be loyal, which enabled Moscow to maintain a strong cavalry force, which is very important for the time, and a strong military capacity to conquer and secure territory. Why? Because you're getting these loyal individuals in exchange for land, instead of other feudal systems where there was really no direct reward for loyalty. Therefore, less at the time there was less central control. Fifth would actually become something very unique, which is monastic land ownership and wealth. Monasteries controlled extensive lands, peasant labor, as well as workshops and artisanal production. This was actually the monasteries were very supportive towards the state. Why? First of all, when the monasteries control the land, one, they're going to be just. What they're going to do is going to be good work. It's going to be honest work. And it's not going to be exploitive. B, tying back into Russia being the third Rome, now the head of Eastern Orthodoxy, as long as the Muscovites pretty much loosely adhere to the tenets of the faith, they would have the loyalty of the monasteries. Now, what goods really helped them during this rise? That'd be the furs that we talked about, salt and iron. Furs from the Arctic and Siberian territories became the backbone of Muscovy's foreign trade. Salt production was huge, first for preservation, and B, it was taxed heavily, which gave the Muscovites a large source of income. And lastly, the ironworks that, in similar situation to, again, Brandenburg, Prussia, was able to supply and equipped their military to expand. So, it's always the question, what can we learn? Why do they succeed? What are some major reasons why they succeeded? One, they took advantage of a disadvantageous position. The Muscovites were under the control of others. Very disadvantageous advantageous position. You had to pay money to simply to survive. However, they flipped the script with this. By instead of working against the institution directly, they did it in a very indirect manner. Why indirect? One, because they played along with it. They used it, but however, instead of using it for to grow, those they hate, they use it to grow themselves and make themselves strong enough to eventually fight back against their invaders. In a similar way, if you're in a situation, a disadvantageous situation, one that you cannot, that's as apparent that you really can't leave for one reason or another, or leaving it because it's an even larger risk than staying in it. Learn how to make that institution work for you until you get to a point where you're strong enough to leave it, and you're in a situation where you can, or you can, in your situation where you can take it over. Um, you know, that's honestly really all I got for you guys today. No, it's trouble, but that one's really huge. One I really guys want you guys to think about. That's a very really unique piece we're able to get from looking at Muscovy, the rise of Muscovy. It's who eventually became Russia. That piece is very, I think, is vital for anyone. Really, guys, what you guys think on that? On that note, hope you enjoyed the episode, and I'll see you for the next one.